2020 hopeful Liz Warren sounding the alarm, accusing Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg of cozying up to the president at a newly revealed private meeting. Why she says what he did at the White House adds up to corruption. Imagine that. This is Bulls and Bears. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm David Asman. Joining me on the panel today, we have Jonathan Honig, Christina Partsinevelos, Liz Peek, and look who's here in New York, Gary B. Smith, all the way from Florida. Well, the previously undisclosed meeting between the president, Zuckerberg, and a Facebook board member named Peter Thiel reportedly taking place last month when Zuckerberg was in Washington testifying before Congress about Facebook's cryptocurrency called Libra. Warren firing off a tweet today, quote, amid antitrust scrutiny, Facebook is going on a charm offensive with Republican lawmakers, and now Mark Zuckerberg and one of Facebook's board members, a major Trump donor, had a secret dinner with Trump. This is corruption, plain and simple. This is how the government keeps working for giant corporations and the wealthy and the well-connected. It's no wonder that companies like Facebook have been allowed to consolidate economic and political power without any real accountability. Jonathan, does she have a point?
Well, David, for Elizabeth Warren, billionaires are corrupt. Everything about them is corrupt. I mean, they steal, they cheat, they exploit. And, you know, despite the fact that these two men, Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg, are tremendous businessmen, you would think that it's in the president's interest to meet with successful businessmen. Oh, Elizabeth Warren wouldn't even stoop to having dinner with them in her mind. It's such rank hypocrisy, David. President Obama met with tech executives in secret in 2014, and Elizabeth Warren herself met with Jamie Dimon. He's a billionaire, too, back in 2017. But just the sniveling, the animosity, the anger she brings towards men like these successful entrepreneurs, it's just so antithetical to what real American values are all about.
Okay, so I don't think you answered the question, and that was whether it was corruption or not. And I don't think that we can weigh in because we're not legal counsel.
How is having dinner corruption?
Let me finish. You have Obama. You're going to use President Obama as setting a precedent. Then you're saying Warren met with Jamie Dimon. Is she president? No. We don't know what happened during those meetings. What about Tim Apple? I mean, Tim Cook, the fact that he asked for 15 exemptions when it comes to the tariffs. He got 10 of them after meeting with President Trump. Of course, we are not discounting the strength of what these men and women have accomplished in their careers and their companies. But at the same time, they're lobbying for the benefit of their companies. There's no doubt about that. And I think that you're just gleaning right over that.
And wait a minute. Are they lobbying or are they informing? Isn't it important for the president? Yes, informing the president, talking about business issues, trade issues, things that he needs to know about. I think this is preposterously stupid. We're not supposed to have meetings between business leaders and the government leaders. That goes on all the time. The fact that it wasn't made public, my guess is Mark Zuckerberg would face a torrent of criticism within his own organization if, in fact, this had been revealed as it's described. But we talked yesterday about Tim Cook meeting with President Trump. How beneficial was that for shareholders of Apple, employees of Apple, et cetera? I think this is just a completely idiotic argument.
Well, you know, I guess the opposite of Christina's point, I think it would be a neglect of duties if he didn't meet with Zuckerberg. Look, let's think of a billionaire who has billions, who has billions of followers. He would want to meet with him. That's the president of China. Hold on, let me finish.
Christina.
President Xi is a billionaire with billions of followers. Zuckerberg actually has more followers than there are Chinese. You would want, as a president, to meet with that person, to be corrupt. How is it? I don't understand in any way, shape, or form how it's corruption.
I never said it's corrupt. And I'm not questioning the meeting. I'm questioning the content of the meeting. That's the argument.
But Christina, how can we even question the content of the meeting? Look, I'm sure. Let's ascribe Zuckerberg with evil motives. I'm sure he's lobbying.
Right.
That's what any governor would do, a leader of a foreign country would do. That's what you do when you're meeting with the president.
Jonathan?
Yeah, and for Elizabeth Warren, Zuckerberg isn't immoral and corrupt because he's a billionaire. he's immoral, or Scott, he's immoral and corrupt because of corruption. He's immoral because he is a billionaire. I mean, that's Elizabeth Warren's whole beef. These billionaires are by definition corrupt. And Christina, I think your point is well on. I mean, the real corruption comes when government gets in bed with business, when they pick winners and losers. That we've seen that time and time under both presidents. But the fact that the president just wants to have dinner with a successful business person, and you call that corrupt?
And by the way, he hasn't done anything in particular beneficial for Facebook. That's just ridiculous. By the way, when President Trump met with the head of various unions, including the UAW, was that corruption? Because my guess is they were pursuing their own interests, too. This is just, as I say, this is part of doing business and being an informed head of state. I mean, I really don't understand how you can. By the way, Obama did try to run the United States without ever really spending much time with business leaders, and it didn't really serve the country very well.
Jonathan, thank you, because I think you said it perfectly at the end over there. But we're going to move on with actually a statement from Facebook responding to this entire thing. The statement is, and I quote, "As is normal for a CEO of a major U.S. company, Mark accepted an invitation to have dinner with the president and the first lady at the White House." So do we think they're pretty much saying nothing here, which I think you guys are all alluding to, that they just met?
Well, no.
You know, they enjoyed some fancy food for free.
Of course they didn't meet. Zuckerberg's there for a reason, just like Tim Cook is there for a reason.
So we're all on the same page.
But the fact is, to slightly against Jonathan's point, is it corrupt when presidents get involved with specific companies or businesses? No, because that's what presidents do. They have to. Look, we're going to talk about the USMCA trade agreement. You could make the argument that that's corrupt because it favors some businesses over other businesses. Yeah, well, but that's unfortunately what the president has to do.
Well, I mean, Gary, we'll go back and we'll roll the tape of you going on and on about Solyndra and how terrible Solyndra was under President Obama. We can roll that tape if you want. I mean,
but no, wait a second. But yes, I agree. But that was a government. But wait a second. But that was a government-run thing. This is the government being involved with private industry. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's the fact of the matter.
Let me just chime in, because I've been quiet here, and I just got to chime in favor of the employees of these companies. It is the responsibility of the President of the United States to take issue with anything that could affect the employees when there are thousands, if not millions. I mean, think of all the residual employees in Apple, for example. Now, is Liz Warren going to scream that he's doing something corrupt by meeting with Tim Cook and talking to Tim Cook in private when it might affect the jobs of millions of Americans? I mean, this whole idea her idea, I believe, that anything that the president does with the business community is corrupt. I don't think it would matter who it was with, right?
I actually think, you're spot on with that. They're using any opportunity, the president meeting with somebody behind closed doors and not revealing it to attack. Yes. So to your point, yes. But like
billionaires
said,
are the worst of the worst. Billionaires,
regardless. But Jonathan, the point you made before, I really agree with. The fact that if they start to actually change their policies to appease just a few billionaires because there's money coming in and changing
that's corruption.
Then yes.
This is big tech. And what we know from all the congressional hearings about Facebook and Google and other companies, most public officials don't know anything about big tech. They don't know how it works. They don't know what the participants look like. And we're on the cusp of this big rollout of 5G around the world. The president has really made a strong case that the United States should be a leader in that. What is a better idea than sitting down with people who might know something about it?
And one thing we do know about Facebook is that it skews very far to the left. I mean, whenever there's a conservative within the organization, they scream about how they're surrounded by leftists. They're not allowed to get their views across. I think it's a good thing that the president is trying to air out the leftward tendencies of an organization
I have to
like
make
that.
one point. I think, and with all due respect, Christina, I think it's almost laughable when we say that it's corrupt when a president favors. You did say that.
No, I didn't.
Roll the tape, please.
I did not
I think
say
you
that.
did, and from now on, you will have said
You're
it.
putting words
No,
into
I'm
my
not.
mouth.
You
Yes,
said it's
you are.
corrupt when president.
All right. Accept what everybody's saying right now.
But here's my point. We didn't call Obama corrupt when he bailed out, and President Bush when he bailed out the auto industry. Wrong-headed, as Jonathan and I would agree, yes. Stupid, yes. Corrupt, you can't say that.